and I, being cast adrift, made what shrift I could, waiting for the moment I might sell my life for what it's worth, the death of Rabban. Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune is a massive cinematic achievement that attempts to balance a faithful retelling of the source material against the director's interpretation. But in the world of motion picture, deviations from the original text are inevitable, as filmmakers attempt to create dramatic spectacles and meaningful narratives that fit well within the structure of film. In the marketing for Villeneuve's Dune Part 2, a climactic showdown was teased between Gurney Halleck and the villainous Beast Rabban, a confrontation that never occurs in Herbert's novel. In this video, I'd like to break down the story elements that serve as a basis for this battle, what happens in the book, and the effect this event would have on the story's climax and overall character development. Spoiler warning if you are unfamiliar with Frank Herbert's Dune. In Dune, Gurney Halleck and Glossu Beast Rabban share a storied past, setting them up as mortal enemies. Gurney spent years of his life in the Harkonnen slave pits. Serving as a painful reminder of his past suffering is the beet-colored scar on Halleck's jawline, a wound inflicted by Beast Rabban himself from an ink vine whip that left a permanent irritant poison in Gurney's skin. Gurney's personal vendetta against the Harkonnens is intensified by the fate of his younger sister, who died in a pleasure house for Harkonnen troops. Numerous times in the novel, Gurney openly expresses his desire to kill Rabban in order to avenge his dark and painful past. Therefore, it can be said that a potential confrontation between the two has plenty of basis from the standpoint of character motivations. In Frank Herbert's Dune, the ultimate demise of Rabban is alluded to rather cryptically. Herbert refrains from detailing the exact circumstances surrounding Rabban's death. The last known action of Rabban in the book was his being sent out by the Baron for an inspection of the perimeter as a safeguard against the threat of a Fremen attack under cover of the oncoming sandstorm. Later, after the Fremen's victory at the Battle of Arrakeen, as they are walking through Rabban's former residence, the Fremen leader Stilgar merely says that Rabban is dead. Consequently, readers are left to speculate about the antagonist's final moments, as Herbert's intentional omission imbues Rabban's fate with a sense of mystery, leaving it open to interpretation. Across the different adaptations of Dune, the circumstances of Rabban's death vary. Alejandro Jodorowsky's unrealized adaptation of Dune envisioned Fremen warriors decimating a band of Harkonnen soldiers, and Rabban is discovered concealed among the rubble. The Fremen leader Stilgar ends Rabban's life by shooting him in the backside. Following this, Rabban's severed head is hoisted on a lance, symbolizing a victory against their oppressors. In David Lynch's 1984 adaptation, Rabban's end is depicted in a more indirect and enigmatic fashion. In that version, Rabban is killed by the Emperor as a warning to Baron Harkonnen. However, this grisly act takes place off-screen and is only inferred through the sight of Rabban's decapitated head presented before the Emperor as the Baron arrives. In John Harrison's three-part miniseries adaptation of Dune for the Sci-Fi Channel, Beast Rabban meets his end during the Battle of Arrakeen at the hands of the local Fremen populace, who suffered during his oppressive rule. He is stabbed to death by the Fremen, and a Fremen child proceeds to decapitate Rabban, proudly displaying his head as a trophy, provoking cheers from the crowd. Interestingly, all of these previous adaptations include a depiction of Rabban's decapitation, despite the source material never hinting at this particular detail. It is customary, however, for Fremen children to finish off wounded enemies and then mark their bodies for the water recovery teams. But again, there is no indication from the novel of the exact manner in how Rabban ultimately meets his demise, or what happened to his body thereafter. This ambiguity in the novel provided Denis Villeneuve with a unique creative opportunity to introduce an original scene featuring an epic confrontation between Gurney Halleck and the Beast Rabban. This showdown is surely a bold yet fascinating expansion from the source material that, given the book's uncertainty, would not even be considered a drastic deviation by many fans. Many feel that such a confrontation not only resolves the ambiguity of Rabban's end, but also adds a new layer of drama and spectacle leading up to the film's climactic finale. Perhaps more importantly, it provides a sort of catharsis for Gurney, visually portraying his long-awaited triumph over the Harkonnens and bringing a satisfying closure to his personal quest for retribution. However, I feel it's also necessary to mention that this showdown potentially distracts or takes away from a key moment with Gurney at the climax of the book and his character development thereafter. After Paul Atreides is called out by Feyd-Rautha in a Canley-sanctioned duel, Gurney insists on representing House Atreides in the fight. At this point in the book, he still desires to enact revenge on the Harkonnens, to which Paul replies that Gurney has already had his day against them. Gurney reminds Paul that he was promised a Harkonnen and suggests that this promise had yet to be fulfilled. Ultimately, Gurney fails to persuade the young Duke to allow him to serve as executioner, as Paul fights and defeats the Harkonnen heir. At this point, Gurney would diverge from the road of violence and revenge and instead would walk a more peaceful path to seek justice. Following the events of Dune, Gurney directed his efforts towards dismantling the oppressive system of government that had been in place on the Harkonnen homeworld. Upon becoming the Baron of Gedi Prime, which is eventually renamed Gamu, he oversees an ambitious transformation of the planet's society, infrastructure, and ecology. Slavery is abolished under his rule, and the Harkonnens' pollutant-spewing industrial machinery is dismantled. Halleck then spearheads a colossal reseeding initiative to revive the ravaged planet's ecosystem. Thus, it can be said that Gurney overcame his thirst for vengeance, focusing instead on his loyalty to House Atreides and channeling his personal animosity towards the Harkonnens into a constructive pursuit for justice and restoration. Therefore, one might contend that an on-screen confrontation in which Gurney kills Beast Rabban would diminish the nuanced subtleties of his character arc, as well as a larger theme of seeking inner peace and justice through restoration without the necessity of direct personal violence. On the other hand, it's important to keep in mind that these minor details and nuances are thoughtfully and intricately woven throughout the pages of Dune and its subsequent sequel novels. For this reason, it is understandable to a degree for some creative liberty to be taken when translating such a complex story into a feature-length visual format. The primary concern is whether or not these changes still uphold the author's vision. While the concerns regarding the potential impact to the character of Gurney Halleck are valid, when it comes to the portrayal of Beast Rabban's fate, there is certainly room for creative interpretation. While Rabban is not a major character in the first half of Dune, his role increases significantly as he follows the orders of his uncle to squeeze the planet for its spice wealth and oppress the Fremen. His continued demonic brutality makes a theoretical confrontation with Gurney Halleck that much more satisfying, as we follow Halleck's journey to avenge his beloved Duke Leto and all those who have suffered at the hands of inhuman Harkonnen rule. But I'm curious to know what you think about the idea of a final duel between Gurney Halleck and Beast Rabban. Do you feel that this clash complements or detracts from what is found in the source material? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.